Okay. Hi everybody, I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show, where we watch old 16mm films, and that was some footage from a Cornet film, Mexico's History, and it was silent, and it said AB roll on the can, but it looks like those were more complete, like prints. AB rolls, traditionally you have, visual material, then you have black slug, and then you have a B-roll where it is the opposite. It's black slug and then it's visual material, and then that allows you can print those onto one thing, a negative, and then make a print from that. But that looked like that was a print of some sort, but just didn't have a soundtrack. So we watch old 16mm films, and this next one is European, and I hopefully won't get in trouble. This is King Rollo and the Bread. Enjoy.
King Rollo waved goodbye to Cook. Then he and the magician went for a walk in the country. After a while, they met a farmer who was getting ready to eat his lunch. All the farmer had to eat was a loaf of bread. King Rollo wanted to show the farmer how clever his magician was. "Would you like something different to eat?" asked King Rollo. "No, thank you. The bread is fine," said the farmer. "How about roast chicken?" asked King Rollo. "Make the bread change into roast chicken, magician." The magician made a magic spell, and with a flash, turned the bread into roast chicken. "Can I have my bread back, please?" asked the farmer. "What about chocolate cake?" asked King Rollo. "Change the chicken to chocolate cake, magician." The magician made another spell, and the chicken became chocolate cake. "Can I have my bread back, please?" asked the farmer. "I bet you like spaghetti," said King Rollo. Again, the magician made a spell. The cake was changed to spaghetti. "Can I have my bread back, please?" asked the farmer. "Ice cream, lovely ice cream," asked King Rollo. Another spell. And this time the spaghetti was changed to ice cream. "Can I have my bread back, please?" asked the farmer. "Look," said King Rollo, You can have anything you want to eat. What would you really like? Just the bread, please. It's delicious. My wife makes it, said the farmer. Oh, well, sighed King Rollo. You'd better give him his bread back, magician. With another spell, the magician turned the ice cream back into the bread. By now, all the food had made King Rollo and the magician feel hungry. Have some bread, said the farmer. There's plenty here. The bread really was delicious. Your magician's very clever, said the farmer. So is your wife, said King Rollo.
Oops. Just making a sandwich. Making a tuna salad sandwich. Oh, that Rollo. Here is Reading with a Purpose. Thanks to Cornette. Enjoy.
When you go to a school library, it isn't hard to guess what you'll find most of the students doing there. Reading. A library is a place for reading. We've brought you to this library to introduce you to a very good reader, Dick. Dick is also a good student, partly because of his good reading habits. There are many reasons why he is a good reader, but one of them is probably more important than any other. To show you the key to Dick's effective reading, we're going to use this balloon over his head. In the balloon, you'll see why Dick is reading. To find out who were the Aztecs. Dick is reading with a purpose. A purpose is often a question you ask yourself when you read. Dick reads many different things in many different ways, but he always reads with a purpose. For example, one time he might read a sports story in the newspaper in this way, quite rapidly. He might have one purpose such as this in mind, to find out who were the stars. Another time, Dick might read a science book in this way, slowly and carefully. Now, his purpose might be to try to understand how plants manufacture food. Perhaps you've noticed that each time we mentioned Dick's purpose for reading, we also called your attention to the material he was reading and to how he was reading. In what way do these three ideas go together? What is the relationship between your purpose for reading, the material you read, and how you read? To see, let's take a book that is easy to read. Suppose your purpose for reading it is fun. How would you read it? Probably rather fast, wouldn't you? But suppose you have a book that is hard to read. If your purpose for reading this book is to study it, then your reading should be slow and careful, shouldn't it? Now, perhaps you can see how these ideas go together. Let's put it this way. Your purpose for reading plus the material you read equals how you read. It's a simple formula, isn't it? But the key to it, remember, is purpose. Perhaps you're like Dick, skillful at discovering purposes and using them. Or perhaps you're like Fred, who doesn't seem to know his purposes for reading or how to find them. Just look at his balloon, empty. It's empty because Fred usually reads without having a purpose clearly in mind. He just reads. What do you suppose this does to Fred's reading? Well, he usually reads without getting much pleasure or understanding from his reading. But Fred would like to be a better reader, and he is trying to learn to find purposes for reading. By watching Fred, you'll see how you can learn to discover your purposes for reading. At home, Fred has some reading to do. He knows that having a purpose will help him read better. But what is his purpose? Why is he reading this book? Well, because his teacher, Mrs. Green, told him to. But is this really the purpose? What about this question that Mrs. Green also wrote on the board? How did communications help our country grow? This is what Mrs. Green really asked the class to find out. Fred finds that he can answer Mrs. Green's question better if he keeps it in mind as he reads. Now, do you see what's happened? Fred has discovered a purpose for his reading. And what material is he reading? A textbook with much information that has to be understood for such a purpose. So how should he read it? Perhaps in more than one way. Fred has learned that in reading, to study a textbook, it helps to look over the material rapidly first, reading mainly the titles of the different sections. This gives him a general view of what the key ideas are, how they follow each other, and how they fit together. So while reading rapidly, or while reading slowly, Fred tries to keep in mind his purpose. Good teachers like Mrs. Green often give you purposes for reading. You're also given a purpose for reading when you're told to find some very specific information in a reference book. Suppose your purpose is to find out what is the area of Central America. What is your material? An encyclopedia, a book with a great deal of information, much more information than you need if you just want to find a single fact. So how should you read? You should skim rapidly, of course. In this case, you don't have to read every word carefully to find the one fact you want. In other cases, the material helps determine your specific purpose, as in following instructions in a recipe for making fudge. The recipe carries with it a purpose for reading. So if your purpose is to find out how do you make fudge, you'll study each step carefully. It's easy to know your purpose when you're following instructions. But suppose you're reading something else. Suppose you're reading a newspaper. Did you know that in newspapers, specific purposes for reading are often suggested by the headlines? Here's the news item. In reading the headline, "Venus Rocket Launched," what questions might you ask? Perhaps you want to find out who launched it, or what does it carry? These questions could be your purpose for reading the whole article. You get the same kind of help in finding purposes in your school books, as Fred is discovering now. Although he's keeping his main purpose in mind, he's finding that in his book, the section titles are also useful in suggesting other purposes to help him get more from his reading. Take this one, for example. Two uses for signals. If Fred thinks, what are the two uses, as he reads about signals in communication, he'll be more likely to find the answer and remember it. So Fred is learning how to use the idea of purpose in his reading and how to find purposes which may be given to him or suggested to him by what he is reading. He knows your purpose for reading plus the material you read equals how you read. But what about this kind of book, a story? Fred will begin reading it later. How will he find his purpose for reading a story? We'll see. Now Fred is going to begin reading Robinson Crusoe. Does he have a purpose? He'll have to discover one for himself. He knows he should have a purpose, but his balloon is empty. He can find a purpose if he just asks himself, why am I reading this? There's a purpose, enjoyment. His general purpose is enjoyment. His material is a story not too hard to read. So how should he read it? Fairly fast. And as he goes along, he tries to think of other purposes to help him enjoy the story more, such as, what will happen next? Whose footprint is it? Will Robinson Crusoe be rescued? And so Fred is beginning to take the most important step of all in reading, learning to discover his own purposes. We'll leave Fred well on his way to becoming a better reader. But what about you? Is your balloon filled when you read? Remember, your purpose for reading plus the material you read equals how you read. Good reading means asking yourself questions to help discover your purposes for reading. Having a purpose when you read is the key to effective reading.
What, may I ask, is a dear little cupcake like you doing with nasty old school books? My dear child, we haven't had school or books in ages.
No school? Really?
Why don't you get rid of that school book? You can drop them in here.
It'll get all burned up in there.
Well, of course it will, dear child. And so it should. Books tamper with man's basic, natural ignorance. Now, what could be worse than that?
But I can't burn this book. It's school property.
Nonsense! Apple sugar. You just need to get into the mood.
Books are not where it's at, teaching you how to spell cat. I know you'd rather play, so why don't you throw all your books away? Books are made for burning, the fire is already yearning to put an end to any learning.
1, 3, 5, 9, throw 'em in the fire's fine.
Put the books in the fire, see the flames growing higher. Burning books is our heart's desire.
2, 4, 6, 8, time to incinerate.
Books will not make you wise, and reading's bad for your eyes. I am sure you agree, so why don't you give all your books to me? Books are made for burning, fire is already yearning to put an end to any learning.
This one here is very good about a man named Robin Hood.
Put the books in the fire, see the flames growing higher. Burning books is our heart's desire.
No, I never liked Tom Sawyer. I won't be a book destroyer.
Books can only confuse, teaching you things you can't use. you should listen to me. Burning your books will set your mind free.
So this that film purports to be about Wizard of Oz. It's part of that Unicorn Tales series that was made by that guy who helped create the Chippendale Dancers and then was murdered gangland style by his jealous partner. So anyways, he did a series of those for television, and each one is supposedly based on a book, and the book in this case was Wizard of Oz, but man, that's straight up Fahrenheit 451. Like, I don't know, a wonderful disco version of Fahrenheit 451. And that was, of course, Tisha Campbell from The Martin Show and other things. She can really sing. It's not evident in that particular song, but there's another song where she's definitely singing and dancing. And yeah, I bring that up every once in a while when we watch a film about library or books or whatever. There you go. In case you didn't know, it's such a good... that the whole film is not that great, but that song is so good. It's so good. Speaking of responsibility and taking care of things, I've shown the second version of this, which takes place in the 70s and actually mentions taking care of other people's record albums, but this is the original version. Enjoy.
This is a story about Andy and his things, his clothes and his toys, and one very special present. Right now, Andy is using things that belong to his school. Don't you think it's fun making things like this? Andy does. Miss Ballard is pleased. But now it's time for the children to return to their desks. They're going to practice writing. Andy likes that. He likes to write. He'll hurry back to his desk. But Andy forgot something. In this class, whoever uses something is responsible for putting it away, so it will be there the next time somebody wants it. Isn't that the right way to take care of things? Well, now for paper and a pencil. Where is Andy's pencil? Here it is. But look at that. The point's broken. Now he'll have to sharpen it while Miss Ballard and the whole class wait for him. Everybody's looking at Andy. It's no fun to have kids say you're the slowest one in the class and call you a baby. It's bad when your teacher is disappointed in you and you don't seem to have a single friend. Wouldn't it be better for Andy if he'd only learned to take care of things? After school, Andy doesn't feel like playing with his friends, but he wants to do something. Now what does he see? This is Fred. He isn't one of Andy's regular friends. He's older. But Andy's thinking Fred might be a friend, and Fred's thinking that Andy may be almost big enough. If Andy can have an older boy as a friend, then nobody can call him baby anymore. So he asks Fred to come and see his tadpoles. He has 2 live ones. Fred might like to see the tadpoles sometime, Then Andy tells Fred about something else he has, something he received as a present. Fred would like to see that. So off they go to Andy's house. This is Andy's room. Here's Andy with Fred. And here are Andy's tadpoles. See? Oh, they're dead. Now Andy remembers he hasn't thought to feed them for many days. And that was one of his responsibilities. But he can still show Fred his special present. That's what Fred came to see. If Andy can only find it. Where is it? His very best thing of all. He just has to find it. Because Fred might not believe him, and Fred says he should have known better than to come home with a little kid. Now Andy's really alone. And look at this. His jet airplane. Poor Andy. Won't he ever learn to take care of things? Here's June, Andy's sister. She wants to play. But Andy says no. It seems Andy just can't get along with anybody today. Anybody but Mother. Maybe Mother knows where Andy's special present is. No, she doesn't. But she does know that something is troubling Andy. What is it? So Andy tells her about what happened at school, and about Fred and the tadpoles and losing his present and, well, why do things like that happen? Mother says, well, Andy, why do you think? Because Mother knows, and Andy knows, and we know that those things happen because Andy hasn't learned to take care of things. Now June is having trouble with her things. Gretchen's head has come off, and June wants Mother to fix it. Suddenly, Andy says, let me fix it. Right now, he's going to start showing that he can take care of things. Don't you suppose Andy is glad to do something to make up for being so mean to June? Besides, it's fun fixing things. When you're through, it's more fun to know you've done a good job. And it's fun to see how much people appreciate it. Now Andy knows he has friends. He thinks he can fix that jet airplane, too. But some things can't be fixed. And no fixing will find things you've lost, such as Andy's favorite present. No, Andy will have to take care of his things all the time. He'll begin right now by putting his jacket and cap away where they belong. Then he'll know just where to find them tomorrow morning. That's another one of his responsibilities. But uh-oh, there's a button missing. Well, Mother will be glad to sew on a new button, especially now that Andy is helping her by looking after his clothes. Andy's going to look after his other things, too. He's going to have a certain place for each thing and keep each thing in its place. Andy knows one way to show Fred and the kids at school that he's no little kid. And he's really quite grown up. Ever since then, Andy's been thinking about how grown up it is to take care of things. When he cleans up his wagon, he thinks about how often he sees the firemen working over their fire engines and equipment to make sure everything is always ready to use. Andy has some new fish in place of his tadpoles. When he feeds them, he thinks of Cousin Len, who helps his father take care of the cows on his dairy farm, where Andy likes to visit. When Andy picks up things that might cause someone to fall and hurt himself, he thinks of his friend the policeman, who helps the children go to and from school safely. Andy has learned, too, that some things break very easily. So he must be especially careful of them and use them just as they're supposed to be used. That's being grown up, too. Many men work with things made of glass and with other things that have to be handled very carefully. Some things that are fun to do are also messy. But Andy has learned to clean up the mess as soon as he's through. After all, doesn't Mother spend a great deal of time washing dishes and cleaning up after the family has eaten? And when Father does his jobs about the house, doesn't he clean up and put away the tools? Yes, cleaning up after yourself is a grown-up way to behave. And what's more, you'll know you've done something that's a real help to your family. Taking care of things is a real help at school, too. You just know Miss Ballard appreciates Andy's help. And nobody thinks of Andy as a baby anymore. Everybody likes Andy. Today, Andy and June are having fun helping Father take care of the yard. But what is Andy so excited about? Do you know what? He's found his special present. What do you suppose it is? It's a camera. Andy's own camera that he got on his birthday. Of course, it's a little dirty. Andy should never have left it outdoors. Can they fix it? Father thinks they can fix it this very afternoon. In a little while, the camera is fixed. What's more, now that Andy has shown that he can be responsible for taking care of things and using them properly, Father thinks he's big enough to use the camera and take real pictures. Andy wants to take a picture of Fred, the boy who came to see the camera the day Andy couldn't find it, remember? Now Fred is glad to play with Andy. He knows that Andy is not too little to be a friend. If you want people to know that you're growing up, learn how to take care of things. You'll have more fun, too.
Oh, Andy. Not only you don't take care of your stuff, you're a baby. Wow, that did not pull any punches. That was pretty brutal. All right, so I'm very excited. I have a film scanner here, and I found a film that I got from a geology department at NC State called Volcano Safety. I'm very excited about this. So let's watch Volcano Safety. Enjoy. I mean, this is baffling. I'm really excited. All right. Anyways.
Heklu undir en þá gerast undur stór á ísaköldu landi og þau mest úfinn sjór eldi spýr og sandi gerðist slíkt við gerfuggsker grúði myrkur og bárum eina nótt í nóvember nú fyrir 2 árum
What? Oh man!
Hækkuðu á löndum, en Bretum illa brá hér við, bregðast heitin vina, ef fjandann með sér fá í lið, til að færa út landhelgina.
Hidden by oceans, a crack is opened across the earth. It scores the line of a submarine ridge around the world. It is not mending. The fracture is kept active by the upthrust of matter from within the earth. The ultimate danger is unguessable. Its immediate threat is the earthquake and volcanic activity which escapes out of that rift. The part of it along the mid-Atlantic ridge has given vent to 4 outbursts in a decade. In the Azores in 1957, Tristan da Cunha in 1961, and in the same year in Iceland, Askja came up like a boil. The central fissure is out of water and visibly dividing Iceland. Indeed, Iceland is slowly falling apart along the rift. Invisibly, the rift continues under the ocean to the north and to the south. The islands off the south coast of Iceland are cold, dead volcanoes. Here, islands have boiled up and inevitably subsided again beneath the sea before they could be named, unless they produced enough lava to resist the sea. The small islands are the rock-lined throats of what were smoking pipes from the erupting crack. Only one large island was able to grow, resist, continue, because as it formed, it advanced into the sea a breakwater of hard cooling lava. Behind these stone walls, the island was secure and hospitable. These walls were built by an upthrust through the cracked earth when Mount Helgafell coughed up enough lava to create an island of 6 square miles, which has lasted 6,000 years. Healthy, hardy as they seem, the people of the island are different. The life they lead is different. In the background is always the reminder, the threat of what surges beneath them, so they build their houses of concrete and wait quietly, but not in ignorance of that background. Even fishermen know that beneath their familiar element of water, a fire is burning. And they were fishermen in a small boat laying lines in sight of Mount Helgafell who were the first to recognize the new volcano. On November 14th, 1963, the bubbling crack in the earth opened for the 4th time in a decade. The eruption cloud had already reached a height of 10,000 feet when observations, measurements, records were begun by geologists the first morning. The eruptions, which varied in number during the day, were issuing along a lengthening fissure. It was a submarine volcano, an explosion caused by the intrusion of cold seawater into the hot, narrow crack. Steam and tephra burst out. The ocean at that point was 425 feet deep. The fissure grew until it was an unbroken 600 yards. Along the entire length of it, the eruption issued. "14 miles away, the threat to the islanders rose from the possible contamination of rainwater, the threat for the fishermen in the spoiling of the sea by heat and the deposit of tephra. The next day and the days following, the tephra deposit accumulated rapidly. A steady wind from the north all through November caused the porous deposit to be laid on the lee of the new island, while the sea beat it away on the windward and forged a horseshoe. The sea continued to pour into the single vent. The violence of a wet explosion is due to the propellant power of steam. and tephra is formed when lava and water meet, fluid magma being suddenly particularized. Deep explosions shot up vertically, sometimes to 500 yards. Shallow explosions occurring in the wide muzzle of the vent were aimless and formed cock's-tail columns. White and black separate in mid-air as the plumes of steam and the heavier ash fall at their different rates. Interest in the phenomenon from the United States was due to Professor Paul Bauer of American University. Many interests converged on the volcano.
Volcanic lightning is of mild interest to geologists. So are tornadoes formed by the volcanic heat for meteorologists. These are excellent conditions in which to examine the behavior of a troublesome occurrence throughout the world. The fallout of tephra which accompanies them is a phenomenon of interest to chemists, among others, and a rare chance. A boat had only to sail downwind to collect on her deck samples of the substance which constitutes the Earth's crust. That it washed away easily was a reminder that the island, too, could be washed away just as easily. Would it last long enough for study was everyone's concern.
One vent had closed, another had opened. Despite its height of over 500 feet, the island was impermanent and kept losing ground to wind and water. But in 4 months, the volcano produced over 500 million cubic yards of tephra, and the lightweight island grew. Fire was first observed in February. The uprush of tephra from a vent at sea level blocked the sea from a higher vent in the same fissure. The effusion from the dry vent was, for the first time, a fountain of viscous fire. Bombs as big as cars sometimes, steam-propelled and burning, kept observers at a distance. Energy was being released at the rate of 10 to the 18th ergs per second, enough energy to illuminate a city 10 times the size of New York. If these were lava fountains, the island might last. The fire died after 5 days and 5 nights.
Next trip was somewhat more memorable. It was on February 19th. We wanted to go out, some scientists and some journalists, to have a closer look at the island, take samples and so on. I had been in a reconnoitering plane over the island the day before, and then there was a breach in the crater wall, and the sea flooded the crater. Under those circumstances, it usually kept rather quiet, and I decided that there was no real danger in going ashore. Went from the Westman Islands in a small fishing vessel.
For Professor Sigurður Þórarinsson, an Icelandic volcanologist, 3 months of observations from a distance had been frustrating. Professor Þórarinsson's first observations had been on the volcano's first day. He was hopeful of collecting rock samples from the island. The February sea was heavy, and far more than the volcano caused them anxiety. The lifebelts proved wise but unnecessary, though one dinghy capsized as it beached. But the party could be seen from the boat, and shortly they reported all hands safe. The tephra cloud obscured the landing party and silenced their remaining contact. Whatever had happened to the party, no rescue could have been attempted.
I remember one of the girls making the remark that there are no overwhelming odds against some of these bombs hitting your head, and I guess that was true. But we had not been on shore more than a few minutes when the big crater fired some warning shots, and we heard the bombs falling out in the sea outside the island, and then they started to crash down all around us. Fishing vessel had to go away because of the bomb fall in the sea. So we were 7 on shore, 5 men and 2 girls, and under those circumstances you have to try to overcome instinctive urge to take to your heels, but the only correct thing to do is just to stand still and stare skywards and not jump aside until just the bomb is going. You feel that the bomb is just going to land on your head, then you jump aside. And then came showers of ash in between, so it was completely dark. It was lukewarm though. There was some lack of oxygen in these clouds, but the wind was fortunately strong, so they blew away very fast, so you could breathe again. This went on nearly an hour. Ash showers, and then bomb fall, and ash showers again.
Töldu óvist þó, örlög hennar vera, uns hún hrauni úr sér skjól sem öldfjöll stundum gera. Byði hún úr bruna þá, borg á nokkrum dögum, vítt sem hana verja má, vel gegn ægistögum.
The breakwater against the sea was formed in April. The future of the island was certain. It would be secure and hospitable. It would have a place on maps of the world. It would have a name. Surtsey would be called the island of Surtur, the fire giant. Separated from the sea, Surtur became an effusive volcano. In Norse mythology, after Surtur's fire destroyed all earth and heaven, the world was born anew. All evil perished, that from the ruin goodness might rise again.
we had later on to go down into the crater itself. And this was at time rather hazardous because of the splicing of the hot lava. We had several burns. It was nothing serious, but the worst thing was that the gases were so aggressive, both to your eyes and especially to your lungs, that working down there was rather unpleasant, of course. There were 3 people sampling gases down there in the crater for about 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours. And they were suffering for 2 days afterwards from vomiting and headaches because of the poisonous gases. It was on one of these trips that we went into the crater, and I had to put my rucksack, I put it on the lava. It was okay to stand on it, on the gummy rubber boots, but I was looking at the fire and didn't notice my bags, but then when I turned around and saw it, it was a flame. Then a little later on that same trip, my cap caught fire also from a little piece of lava which got caught in it. As we were sampling,
Professor Guðmundur Sigvaldason analyzed the chemical composition of the lava. It was the same as the earlier tephra, an olivine basalt. The highest measured temperature was 1130 degrees Celsius. What might the temperatures be inside the Earth? The lava dome increased in height continuously as the lake splashed, cooled, hardened. The development of a shield volcano or Hawaiian type had never been witnessed. The lava lake rose inside the growing dome. The surface had reached as high as 365 feet by July. When the lake level rose, it could be watched vigorously brimming over in rivers of flowing rock. At 45 miles per hour, the lava flows faster than a man can run. The seething rivers frequently enter tunnels. The molten rock splashes the sides of the channels, clings, cools, and slowly covers itself over, though the course is still visible from above. A shell of hardened lava is spread over the island, and through porous tephra are everywhere tough veins of bubbling rock.
Well, the composition of these gases are quite interesting. The main constituents of the gases are hydrogen and sulfur dioxide, with carbon dioxide, some carbon monoxide, and water. Water amounts to about 80% of the whole gas mixture. This composition is quite similar to gas compositions of the Hawaiian volcanoes.
In hot torrents, all the streams urged up by the central vent move to north, south, east, and west, pulled down by their own weight. Pseudo-eruptions occur when lava meets the sea. Tephra sand piles up at the lava edge as the island irresistibly expands outward into the sea. Lava congeals rapidly when it hits cold water. Cinder forms, which the sea breaks down into black sand. More lava covers the sand, and the shore is persistently extended beneath clouds of steam. How much lava was poured into the sea is unmeasured, but the area of the island by the end of August was a mile square, an area traced and retraced as its size was taken. Visitors to Surtsey had soon to be restricted. Curiosity was a sufficient passport, but it had to be curiosity with a purpose. Those who qualified were curious about many things, for no one had ever seen anything like Surtsey before, and some, like Professor Thorarensen, had seen it all happen.
One of the more remarkable things when you come on this island, how fast the geological processes work there. We are accustomed to this in Iceland, though, because everything in Iceland, from a geological point of view, goes very fast. Iceland was built up in a very short time, and both the building up forces and the forces that break down, they work at a very great speed in Iceland, but in Surtsey they work at still greater speed. Things that happen here in, say, 100 years, they may happen here in a few days. The lava flow down into the sea, and then you have a gentle slope when the lava goes down into the sea. After a few weeks you may have vertical cliffs, many tens of feet high, and in front of them you have a sandy shore, and around the pebbles and blocks just surrounded that you would guess that they were thousands of years old. Just that you know that they are only a few weeks.
The desert shores then showed something more wondrous than a human footprint. There was death on Surtur's Island. And where there was death, there was the fertile promise of new life. And where there is life and death, there is man to be curious and hopeful. And the observations, measurements, and records began again.
Sustur hann hljónaður, ég hygg hann þögull lífi, þótt sonurinn hans yrklingur, sífellt kjaftinn rífi. Þarlegt vann hann verki hér, víst að gleður líði, Surtsey stormert eyja og Íslandi til fríði. Hann skal botnin berja nú, í braginn minn hinn ríka, að og verður eyja sú, yndi jarðfræðinga.
Wow, Bernard Vonnegut. That was Kurt Vonnegut's brother. Just looked that up. And Kurt Vonnegut kind of wrote about his brother a little bit in Cat's Cradle. I'm so bummed that was not volcano safety. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. I was like, wow, they did like a 30-minute film about volcano safety? Like, it seems pretty easy and self-explanatory. It's like, if there's a bunch of molten rock pouring down, don't go there. Like, it's going to be hot. It's going to be dangerous. There's going to be all these gases that are going to be incredibly toxic. Don't just avoid it. Don't go there. But there was a little bit of safety stuff kind of hidden in there about people being surrounded by the gas for a couple of hours and the toll that took. But wow, all right, there you go. Icelandic volcano footage. You never know what you're going to see on AV Geeks, and hopefully you like that. And if you do, hit the thumbs up button, hit the like button. You can also subscribe. You can support us by using the super thanks button, or go to ko-fi.com/avgeeks and buy us some coffee, or patreon.com/avgeeks, and that will help us pay for our storage unit expenses, etc. So thanks for joining us. And I think we'll be back tomorrow. What is it, Friday? Yeah, let's do it. Enjoy. Take care.